This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Hone, and today is Monday. And that means it's time for this 501st episode of MTG Top 10, the series where I rank cards based on their historical performance at Magic's highest level of competition. In the more than 500 other MTG Top 10s I've already done, we've looked at a whole lot of stat lines, but there's still plenty more we haven't done, and we're checking another one off of the list today with a look at 2-mana 3/2s. Getting a 3/2 for 2 mana is a pretty great deal, and it doesn't take a whole lot of extra text on a card for a creature with such a good stat line to see play. There have been 31 cards in the history of Magic with that stat line, and 19 of them, which is more than half, have at least 1 point using my scoring system. We've actually seen a whole lot of them over the last 2 years or so, and this got me to wondering what 2-mana 3/2s have done historically. To be eligible for this list, a card simply had to be a creature with a mana value of 2, a power of 3, and toughness of 2. And in this video, we'll look at the 10 2-mana 3/2s that have been the most successful at Magic's highest level of competition. Before we get started, here's a quick reminder on how I score cards in these videos. This includes events like Pro Tours and World Championships, and a second tier top 8 is worth 1 point, and this includes events like Grand Prix and Regional Championships. Alright, let's get to the list. At number 10, it is Avatar of the Resolute. This 2-mana 3/2 comes sporting 2 useful keywords, Reach and Trample, and it likes +1/+1 counters. When it enters the battlefield, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it for each other creature that has a +1/+1 counter, so oftentimes it's even more efficient than a 2-mana 3/2. The Avatar gained all of its points in standard hardened Scales decks, which were aggro decks loaded up with +1/+1 counters and payoffs for them, so the Avatar was obviously a perfect fit. It hasn't gained any points though since rotating out of standard. At number 9, it is Skittering Scourge. The Scourge is fairly representative of what most of the game's early 2-mana 3/2s looked like. That is, they came with some significant downside. Basically, in the game's earlier days, creatures were much weaker than they are now. These days, we get 2-mana 3/2s who only have upside in their text box, like Avatar of the Resolute. But back then, you didn't get that. The Scourge's downside is that you have to sacrifice it if you ever cast another creature spell, and the good news is it also comes with upside since it has flying. That means that this can represent a pretty impressive clock, and that efficiency was super impressive back in the late 90s and early 2000s. The Scourge gained all of its points in Extended. First, it did it in Necropotence decks, which didn't run any creatures other than a couple of Scourges, so the downside didn't really matter. It was also featured in Extended Suicide Black decks, which were made up of super efficient black creatures with downsides, and you can see how the Scourge fits in there. It hasn't gained any points since 2002. At number 8, it is Voltaic Brawler. This is another 2-mana 3/2 where the text box is all upside. The Brawler generates energy for you, and when it attacks, it can consume 1 energy to become a 4/3 with Trample. Basically, this thing hits like a truck if you play it on turn 2. Unsurprisingly, it was played in Standard in aggressive decks, which ran things like Long Tusk Cub and Electrostatic Pummeler, so it could do a whole lot of work with energy. It has also seen a bit of play in both Historic and Pioneer Gruul aggro decks, but so far it doesn't have any points in those formats. It does have some shot at gaining more points in the future though. At number 7, it is Silver Quill Silencer. This 2-mana 3/2 comes with the ability to punish your opponent for casting a card that you name when it enters the battlefield. Doing 3 and drawing a card is a pretty big deal. It means your opponent basically has to get 2 for 1 when they cast the named card and get bolted in the face at the same time. Despite being a relatively new card, the Silencer has already had success in multiple formats, with points in Standard, Pioneer, and Legacy. In Standard, it's played in decks like Orzhov Aggro and Orzhov Midrange. In Pioneer, it's played in Orzhov Rally the Ancestor decks, which are basically Orzhov aggro decks that come with a combo kill that involves the Rally. Worth noting that Rally was recently printed in the Explorer Anthology, and that could bode well for Silver Quill Silencer in that format too. And in Legacy, it's seen some play in human tribal decks, which are generally made up of a bunch of hate bear type humans, who come in with good stats and have some small disruptive effect, and Silver Quill Silencer is exactly that. The Silencer looks primed to gain a bunch more points in the future and move up this list. At number 6, it is Sungold Sentinel. This 2-mana 3/2 exiles a card from the graveyard when it attacks or blocks, which is a nice hate effect to have on an efficient creature. And it comes with even more upside than that, since if you can get Coven going, it also gains hexproof from a specific color, and can't be blocked by creatures of that color. That text box kind of drives me crazy because it's so close to protection, but instead they gave us a super wordy text box. Obviously it's not quite protection, it can still be damaged by stuff of the color that's named, and if it has an aura of a particular color on it, it doesn't just fall off, but still. Anyway, yeah, this is obviously a powerful 2-mana 3/2. Mono-white aggro has been a fixture in Standard the whole time the Sentinel has been legal in the format, and it's gained some significant points in that type of deck, while also gaining points in Pioneer white-weenie decks. It has a lot of time left in Standard, so it's pretty likely to continue to climb up this list. At number 5, it is Tenacious Underdog, which is the newest card on the list, making it all the more impressive. It clocks in at number 5. This 2-mana 3/2 comes with Blitz, and it can blitz right out of the graveyard. Blitz is a pretty sweet mechanic because it not only brings the creature back with haste for a turn, you also get to draw a card when the creature dies, so it actually ends up giving you a card every time. The Underdog is great because you can just play it as a 2-drop that gets in for 3 or 6 damage, and then in the later part of the game it can start coming back, damaging the opponent and drawing you a card. The Underdog has already gained significant points in both Standard and Pioneer. It has the kind of effect that all kinds of decks are interested in, and that has contributed to its success. A good example of this is the new Capenna Championship, where the Underdog was in 5 of the top 8 decks, and there were 3 completely different archetypes. This included Esper and Judd midrange, as well as Grixis aggro. In Pioneer, it's been played in Rakdos aggro. The Underdog is going to keep gaining points, and it has a pretty real shot at reaching as high as the number 2 slot on this list within a year. At number 4, it is Dothy Voidwalker. This 2-mana 3/2 comes with Shadow, which means it is very challenging to block, but it also can't block most creatures. A 2-mana 3/2 with Evasion can represent a pretty impressive clock, but it can do a lot more than that. It makes it so your opponent's stuff goes into exile instead of the graveyard, and you can even sacrifice it to play one of the cards the Voidwalker exiles. This Dothy Rogue was printed in Modern Horizons 2, which meant it was never legal in formats like Standard or Pioneer, but it has made up for that by seeing significant play in the formats it is legal in. In Modern, it's played in Rakdos aggro, and meanwhile in Legacy, it's played in combo decks alongside Helm of Obedience. Because the Voidwalker keeps your opponent's cards from actually going to the graveyard, you can activate the Helm once, and it just mills your opponent's entire library. This is because the Helm checks to see if a creature or X cards have been put into the graveyard, and only stops once that requirement is reached. But with the Voidwalker in play, those cards don't go to the graveyard at all, so it just keeps on milling and checking for its requirement to stop, and it never finds it. Like the Underdog, the Voidwalker is well positioned to keep on gaining points. At number 3, it is Blood Tithe Harvester. This 2-mana 3/2 gives you a blood token when it enters the battlefield, and it can also function as a removal spell, since it can tap and sacrifice to give a creature -X/-X, where X is equal to twice the number of blood tokens you control. So, on his own, he can give something -2/-2, but most of the decks that play him also play other blood, so he can often take down pretty much anything. It's been really successful in Standard and Pioneer Rakdos aggro. The Harvester is still in Standard and probably isn't anywhere near done gaining points yet. At number 2, it is Crawl Harpooner. This 2-mana 3/2 comes with Reach, and the ability to fight a flyer when it enters the battlefield. It raises its power for a turn too, based on how many creature cards are in your graveyard. So sometimes this can just be a plummet-like effect, and there are times where you want that. It's particularly spicy when you get to kill a 1-power flyer, because it gets to remove a creature and remain on the table. A decent chunk of the time it is basically just a 2-mana 3/2, but that additional upside is far from irrelevant. The Harpooner has put up top 8s in Standard, Pioneer, and Historic in a pretty wide variety of mid-range and aggro decks. It's likely to gain some more points, but Blood Tithe Harvester, Dothy Voidwalker, and Tenacious Underdog seem reasonably likely to pass it in the next year or so. So there's likely to be a lot of change on the list from 2 to 10, but it's pretty unlikely any current or future card will ever pass our number 1 card, which has a lead of more than 100 points, and that card is Scrap Heap Scounger. This 2-mana 3/2 can't block, but it can also keep coming back from the graveyard. Like with the Underdog, a 3/2 coming back all the time isn't something you can ignore, and this one can stick around and keep swinging every single turn. It was one of the most played creatures while it was in Standard, especially because you could slot it into pretty much any aggro deck while just splashing black for the ability. It also didn't hurt that there were tons of great artifact payoffs in Kaladesh Standard 2, like Unlicensed Disintegration and Toolcraft Exemplar. Among the many aggro decks it was played in, both Rakdos and Mardu vehicles were highly successful. The Scounger did go dormant for a while after rotating out of Standard, but the Pioneer format has breathed new life into it. In that format, it's a fixture in mono-black aggro decks, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. It has a massive lead over the other cards on this list, and is still quite active, so I think the Scounger will be at the top of this list for a very long time. So, those are the 2-mana 3/2s that have done the most at Magic's highest level of competition. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future editions of this series, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you want to watch the 500 other MTG Top 10s, including many more that look at stat lines, you should see the playlist on your screen shortly. And if you want to go the extra mile in supporting this channel, you can on Patreon or by becoming a YouTube member. Thanks for watching.